What is going on, guys? Was DICE not all too long ago giving us their road ahead plan about our final monthly updates, the final one showing up here in June, and with no news about any new maps showing up in Battlefield 1 makes me fairly confident we've seen the last of the Battlefield 1 maps. With that said, I feel like this is the perfect time for me to share with you guys my least to favorite list of maps in BF1. But before I go any further, I want to mention that I won't be including the two air assault maps of London Calling or Razor's Edge, nor do I feel like I'm representing the views of the whole Battlefield 1 community. These are primarily my own subjective, relative opinions of how I feel about these maps. I just feel like it would be a fun time to do this now that we're seeing the Battlefield 1 cycle begin to slowly die off, and I feel like this is a great time to really appreciate these maps that have been introduced to us. Again, keep in mind, I'm trying to condense this video down as small as possible, so I might not be pulling in all of my reasons for why I have these maps ranked the way they are, but if you feel like having a discussion down in the comments below on how you think a map should be ranked, I'll be sure to be down below to check it out. So let's just jump right into number 29. My most least favorite map on Battlefield 1 is Volga River. This clearly was the easiest one for me to place through my 1 through 29 placement, as I just don't have a good time playing this map. I think partially because how it does not play well on Conquest. I do think this map plays much better on the Operations game mode, but even with some good amount of playtime on Operations, it's still my least favorite map on Battlefield 1. Going back to the Conquest game mode, with the lack of elite classes, the lack of a true behemoth on the map, no vehicles to move around. The only vehicles that are available to be used are the land ships, which is my least favorite tank to use. And even though I did like the really only infantry game mode, the map felt too big to really enjoy that close quarters combat that a lot of smaller maps had to offer. So this felt like a map that just, no matter how it played out, just wasn't going to work out well, and for me, with clearly my least favorite map on Battlefield 1. Moving on to number 28 on the list, which was my second least favorite map on Battlefield 1, and just like number 29, it was an easy placement for me to put on my placement system here, as clearly I knew what 29 was, and clearly I knew what 28 would be, and that is Lupko Pass. Again, a map that just felt like a grind. The lack of vehicles on this map was a bit of a grind as well. If you were stuck on areas like on A and you were trying to get to G, you really did feel like you were in the mountains, freezing to death as you were trekking across the slopes into the other territory. You know, it forced you to really have to learn how to play on the cavalry class, which I did learn to do somewhat well, but even then, for the most part, I didn't like how that played. I didn't like just how the map played at all. It was just a really bit of a grind. I remember it was the first Name the Tsar map to be given out. It was kind of the pre-hype before Name the Tsar was released, and it was a map where you could play over and over again, and there were other maps that are higher on the list that I was able to play non-stop for a month straight, and I was hoping Lupko Pass would kind of have the exact same excitement. Little did I know that it was actually going to turn out to be one of my least favorite maps on Battlefield 1. Now that I got my two least favorite maps out of the way, everything else from here is no more of that negative viewpoint, as all these maps from here on out are maps that I would want to play in the rotation, and I probably won't veto basically 100% of the time. All these maps from here on out were definitely very fun to play on, some more fun than others, and I think that's the reason why some of these got ranked lower than others, as you know, the higher up ranks that I have were just maps I just had more fun on. So number 27 is Empire's Edge, a very fun map, very big map, had a lot of tank and airplane gameplay you could have on it. Not a lot of elite class gameplay when you had the Flame Trooper on for at least the Conquest mode. Again, a lot of Conquests that I played throughout these maps, so a lot of my viewpoint comes from there. had to learn how to take out tanks from maps like this early on Battlefield 1, as this is when I began to kind of realize how powerful tanks were at the very base vanilla maps of BF1. So it did kind of have me to learn through this time how to take out tanks efficiently. That's what got me hooked on using anti-tank mines and anti-tank grenades. And so that was originally how my gameplay evolved with the assault class very early on Battlefield 1. Number 26 on the list is St. Quentin Scar. Very similar to like an Empire's Edge, but very much enjoyed learning how to use the tank hunter class on this map. Originally, it felt like it was a little too overwhelming to deal with only having to lay on the ground to shoot this rifle. So I came to really utilize the tank hunter class a little bit too late, as eventually when the new They Shall Not Pass maps got released was just around the time when I was beginning to realize the power of this weapon. But for the most part, a very fun map. Again, had vehicle gameplay on it, got to use a lot of tanks on this map, got used to playing a lot of heavy tank and light tank gameplay, and again, a very large map, but a very fun map as well. Number 25, Giant Shadow, a map that I felt got a little bit more hate than it deserved. Had a good time still playing on the tank hunter class for this map, as well as dropping anti-tank mines down by the railroad on C flag. Always was a sure kill, picking off armored vehicles and motorbikes who would just follow that track path all the way down to C territory. Hopefully people will give it a second chance with the new Shock Operations game mode coming to this map, as again, sometimes the different game modes can make the map feel a little bit better and not much of a grind as it does on other game modes. Number 24, Albion, a map that was slowly beginning to introduce us what naval warfare could be like, with certain emphasis on the attack boats on this map. Very fun time moving on these boats and jumping into the gunner seats and picking off enemy players on the map, as well jumping onto the tank hunter gun or the AT rocket guns and positioning myself in different places to take these vehicles out on the playing field. Number 23, Fort Veo, a map with a pretty cool fort on it that probably got more love on smaller game modes like TDM that primarily focused around this fort gameplay, but even on the larger conquest and operations mode, still a pretty fun map overall. Number 22, Sinai, probably one of my most favorite visually pleasing maps on Battlefield 1, which says a lot considering it's in a desert environment. So taking in the surroundings was always very enjoyable for me. Was the first Battlefield map that I did get to play, so even though it's lower on my list, it will always remain a very special map to me on Battlefield 1. Number 21, Suez, a map that barely edged out Sinai for making the 21st spot, primarily because of the smaller map layout. As it seemed like as Battlefield progressed, I began to enjoy more and more the close quarter combat, and even though I do have some very large maps up on the higher spots on my ranking list, the close quarter combats did weigh kind of heavily the more Battlefield 1 progressed for me. Number 20, Brussels Keep, a testament to my enjoyment for these smaller maps, as the playstyle is not all too different from Volga River or Lepko Pass, my two least favorite maps on Battlefield 1, so because of this smaller gameplay style, does make it to the number 20 spot on my list. Number 19, Cape Helles, the map that introduced us to the L-class destroyer, giving us an idea of what naval warfare could look like on Battlefield 1. Unfortunately, on this map, the warfare was very underwhelming, but it did make up for this by being able to storm the beach, giving me that D-Day gameplay style that I felt was lacking in the World War I era. Number 18, Zeebrugge, a map that, like Cape Helles, had a very underwhelming naval aspect to it and a very disappointing C-class airship, but the layout style was very unique to Battlefield 1, and it being a night map made it the 18th spot on my list. Number 17, Caporetto, a map like Giant Shadow I felt got a little bit more hate than it deserved. Whether I was on the attacking side trying to get down the mountain or on the defending side, always had a sense of urgency the moment the map started. So definitely with the added effect of the Lifeless Projector, I'm giving Caporetto my 17th spot on my list. Number 16, Ballroom Blitz, a map that gave us a very unique structure to play inside at the center of it. Though I thought there were other maps that did a better job doing this. Despite this though, Ballroom Blitz will still remain a very favorite map to me on Battlefield 1. Number 15, Helgeland Bite. My favorite super large map, gave us the first real naval warfare that was actually impactful in the Battlefield 1 game. Unfortunately, it was very difficult for DICE to balance the vehicles on this map, so it does rank it a little bit lower. But despite it being a really large map and it having a bit of some balancing issues, definitely a very solid map and makes it number 15 on my list. Number 14, Priest de Tutor. A very close quarters combat map that you got to play in the dark, almost like the night version of Amiens. Fortunately, it being a little bit too dark ranked it a bit lower on my list, but despite that, a very fun map with the night environment to play on. Number 13, Monte Grappa. My favorite mountain range gameplay on Battlefield 1, though it really only had one other competitor, that being Caporetto. Despite the lack of competition, definitely felt it would have been very difficult to dethrone Monte Grappa as the best mountain range gameplay on BF1. Number 12, Galatia. Probably the one map on the list that surprised me the most, as initially I didn't think it was going to be as fun as what it turned out to be. Still very much enjoyed this map, jumping especially on the Tank Hunter class, picking off all the vehicles that show up on this map. Always ends up being a very fun time when I get a chance to play on Galatia. Number 11, Soissons, a map that had a variety of gameplay styles that you could choose. The variations of different tanks you could use, from the airplanes as well. Even having elite classes like the Tank Hunter and Trench Raider classes on this map definitely made it fun. It was one of only 2 maps that had the Char tank Behemoth on it. It did at times feel a bit overwhelming by all of the vehicles on this map, so it did rank a little bit lower, but Soissons is definitely a solid map and did rank number 11 on my list. Cracking the top 10 spot at number 10, Verdun Heights. This was a map that first really introduced me to the Trench Raider Elite class, and this being my favorite Elite class on Battlefield 1 led to very epic moments specifically on this map. It probably would have ranked higher if it wasn't for the inconsistent respawn times for the Trench Raider class on this map, but despite this, it definitely deserves its spot, cracking the top 10 spot on my list. At number 9, Aki Baba, another map like Galatia where I initially didn't think I would enjoy it as much as I did. Turns out this was one of my favorite maps that was released on Battlefield 1. That close quarter combat with the canyon gameplay style, with the addition of the Infiltrator Elite class, definitely makes it one of my favorite maps on Battlefield 1. Coming in at number 8 is Argani Forest. So some might be surprised why this is ranked lower than maybe what other people would rank it on their list, which still I don't think is all too bad considering it's number 8 out of 29. But I think Argani Forest falls victim to too much of a good thing. And what I mean by that is because this map is so much fun, so many people vote this at the end round screen voting screen where they end up choosing Argani Forest, and because it is one of the older maps that first came out when BF1 was released, I've grown a little bit tired of it over time. But even with that, it's still a very, very fun map, has this unique thick forest gameplay style, and still will always be one of my most favorite maps on Battlefield 1. At number 7, Amiens. So I'm sure a lot of people will be surprised by this placement, as I'm sure a lot of people in the community believe Amiens is at least in the top 3. Unfortunately, it falls victim to the same thing Argani Forest has, where it's just too much of a good thing. So that's its only fault that I can give to this map, really, is the fact it gets voted so many times. It's just been one of the oldest maps in the game, and it just wears on you a bit over time. But despite that, it's still a very fun map. Nothing like playing through the midst of those buildings, weaving down the different pathways and finding your different flank zones. Having those little bridges that go over the train tracks where the behemoth can roll through. Still nothing like it in BF1, and still a great, great map in the game. Number 6, Passchendaele. This map is such a fun close quarters map. Pretty much anywhere on the playing field you can see the enemy players. That's the reason why everyone seems to have like their highest kill games on this map, as it is a very close quarters combat, infantry centric focused map. Even though there is a little bit of landship gameplay, it doesn't really control much of the game. Now this could rank a little bit higher on my list, being that it is a new map, so it does have the other effect that It hasn't played too much, so it can't be too much of a good thing for me to experience, so that could be the reason why. But even then, it's pretty safe to say that Passchendaele is a really fun map, very fun with the close quarters combat and infantry focused style gameplay. Breaking my top 5 list at number 5 is Rupture, a map that's a little bit larger than the close quarter combat maps I enjoy, but with my favorite elite class, the Trench Raider class on this map, definitely moves it up the list. I also love the different variations of gameplay styles. You can use every different type of tank, or you can go into the airplanes. It's the one other map next to Soissons that has the Char Behemoth tank on it. And because this map is a bit more spread out, it's less chaotic as Soissons with the different variants playing in the map. With the red flowers that complement this map as well, definitely makes it a very solid 5 on my list. The number 4 spot on my list goes to Zarishan. This was Ballroom Blitz for me on steroids. Having a massive building structure at the center of the map. Of course, DICE artistically complement this perfectly by putting a cathedral there. As well, only having 3 captured territories forced the gameplay on Conquest to be heavily focused on that building structure. With the elite classes like the Villa Perosa on this map, made for epic battles that could easily place this map as a number 1 spot on my list. Making it to the number 3 spot on my list is Novell Knights, the first night map on BF1. I thought DICE did a beautiful job with the night aspect to this. It wasn't too dark where you couldn't see anyone, but it was dark enough to bring that vibe. This was really the first trench focused maps on BF1, and with the Trench Raider Elite class on this map, really made it for some pretty crazy trench warfare. I still remember when it was first released, it had its own server that you could only play Novell Knights on, and I remember for that first month playing the map over and over again, never getting tired of it. Still today, I probably could still go on and play Novell Knights over and over again and still have just as much fun as I did before. And at number 2, Fort Veo. What a map. Tell you what, this map, really no fault with this map at all, really. I enjoy this map so much. I think the only downfall of this map is sometimes you do so well at it and you'll cap all the bases and the enemy team can't get out of their home quarter spawn and the game ends much quicker than it should. Really, when it comes down to this map, just love it so much. Still haven't gotten tired of it being upvoted as much as the community seems to enjoy it as much as me. Absolutely love this map. The close quarter combat, the weaving in the fort from all the different paths that you can take, everything from playing on different game modes of Operation and Conquest. Really no complaints other than sometimes you can really end the game really quick on this map. This will always be a favorite map of mine, and even after going on to different Battlefield games, I will always think about Fort Veo, as this is definitely one of my favorite maps on pretty much any game I've ever played on. And finally, at number 1, River Somme. What a map. I tell you what, you know you're having a good time when you're playing on a game mode like Conquest Assault and you're still loving the map. This was the map that really brought trench warfare to its finest in BF1. DICE hit it perfectly right here, making the very heart of this map trench rich with gameplay. And the depths of the trenches to the just interweaving throughout the map of the trench layout, it just makes it perfect on this map, with the epic start being in the wheat fields. But after that start, everything's really focused on the very heart of the game, which is right in the middle where the trenches are at. This really makes this map so epic with so many trench battles, with having the variation of elite classes on the map, having the Villa Perosa here where you've had some pretty epic battles in the trenches. It's really just an awesome map altogether. Again, even on a game mode like Conquest Assault, which is not my favorite game mode at all, still makes this map extremely epic. I'm looking forward to it being on Shock Operations so much, because I feel the Operations game mode is really going to bring this map even more to life. So definitely have had a great time on the attacking side and even on the defending side, and trying to prevent players from getting on the wheat fields to going as far as getting into the armored vehicles and running over players. I can have an extensive amount of fun that seems like it will never end on this map. But that's my top list for you guys right there. The first two were much easier than basically everything else. Again, that middle section there, those are good maps, but some of those maps in my top 10 are just so much fun to play on, and really anywhere from those top 10, definitely top 5, could anywhere place that number 1. Definitely really fun maps. Definitely been enjoying Battlefield 1. Feel free to let me know your guys' thoughts down below. I will be in the comments to check out how you guys feel about my list. Again, I always appreciate you guys being here. I am Living, and I'll catch you guys again later. Peace.